Today, we're attempting to recreate the famous jack-o'-lantern from the Disney movie called Halloweentown. This giant jack-o'-lantern could be the centerpiece of your residential or commercial display. So join me as I show you step-by-step instructions on how to create the pedestal and the jack-o'-lantern. Today, we're making a super special project. We're gonna try to replicate the giant jack-o'-lantern from the Halloweentown movie that came out in 1998. Now, this project is gonna be big, it's gonna be bold, it's gonna be amazing. So if you wanna build this, stick around for the ride. To begin, we need Styrofoam blocks. I'm gonna be using about 50, maybe 52 blocks, depending on how big I do the stem. Now, you may be asking yourself, where am I gonna find all these blocks? And I've got you. I actually made a video on where to locate these blocks if you live in the United States. There should be a drop-down link right up here. Click it, go see where you can find these blocks for free. I actually found all of these blocks just last week from a business I had never spoken to before. But you have to do your homework, you gotta do some driving, you gotta do some work in order to find these blocks. But they're everywhere, they're located everywhere if you know where to look. So go check out that video, and once you find a business that has it, start getting your blocks. So we have these 50, 52 styrofoam blocks. We're gonna be using adhesive, we're gonna be using some hot knives, we're gonna be using a bunch of cool tools. Everything that I use on this channel, from the materials, the paints, the tools, everything I list in the description below. If you hit more, you'll see everything I use with the links, and then you can follow along, or you can buy the same ones or find them elsewhere for a better price, and then come and do this project with me. So let's get started on this Halloweentown jack-o'-lantern. I wanted to take a moment to share with you all the newest children's book I've written. It's called Oliver and the Lost Flame, and it's a Halloween story based on a young pumpkin named Oliver and his quest to save his town after their enchanted flame was snuffed out, leaving the town of Pumpkin Patch in disarray and afraid. This book is rated for children 3 to 10 years old, and it's available on Amazon via paperback. The book is also available internationally and has been printed in English, Spanish, and French. So if anyone wants to support me or read it to their kiddos, go check it out. All right, so we've stacked up all of the styrofoam blocks upright. As you can see, they're stacked up in rows of 12. There's 4 rows of 12, and I think this way it maximizes the amount of styrofoam blocks we use, because if we put them laying down, I think we need more blocks. So we have 48 blocks here. But remember, the stem's gonna need about 2 or 3 blocks, but this is how we did it. We did it like this so we can see how we're gonna glue it all together. And now that we have the shape like this, we can begin using the adhesive. To glue the blocks together, I'm gonna be using StyroGoo. Now, this is a permanent adhesive. It's made from the hot wire foam factory. I always love using this because of the strong bond that it does with styrofoam blocks. So this one takes about 12 hours to fully cure. It's tack-free in about 30 minutes. But we can also use regular expanding foam. The issue with using expanding foam is that it separates the styrofoam blocks from each other, so you got to fill in those gaps later. So this is one option if you just want something super fast, super inexpensive, but this is what I go for: really strong adhesive and really good hold. To begin gluing them together, we got our StyroGoo. Remember, you want to wear a respirator when using things such as expanding foam or StyroGoo. But if you're outside, just make sure you're not breathing in these fumes. If you're inside, definitely wear a respirator. So we get our glue, and we simply do zigzag lines. Bam, back and forth like this. Get your block and just put it on top and move it a little bit back and forth to make good contact. Make sure it's leveled on all sides. And bam, we're done. We move on to the next one and keep on going. All right, so now our blocks have been glued together 4 by 4. You see like that, 4, 4, 4. But now we need to glue these blocks to these to that, and so on. So we want to use expanding foam for this section because using StyroGoo, you need contact with both blocks, and there's some gaps here that it's not going to cut it. So we're going to use Loctite expanding foam. But remember, we need to glue these together vertically, and then we need to glue them horizontally because these need to be glued to these. So to make it easier, we're just going to start vertically. We're going to glue all of them vertically first. So we start from the bottom. We'll move this to the side. We'll put expanding foam right in here, not a lot, just a simple amount. Then you get your block, put it on top, move it a little back and forth, but put some more expanding foam here, get your next block, and do that. It takes about an hour for it to completely dry. If it's hot, it's humid, it'll dry within an hour, max 2 hours, so you'll be good to go after that. So I'll do this one first, I'll do this one next, this one. I'll do all 4 vertically. I'll wait about an hour to 2 hours. Once that's done, then we can open it like this and put expanding foam on the inside. And to make it easier, you'll probably want to just lay this down. Lay it down, put expanding foam. You want to put good amounts, and then bring it up and make sure it makes contact with this one. But once it's completely done, then we can get to the fun part, which is carving it, cutting it. It's going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be amazing. So let's continue. All right, so just foam like this. And then get the next block and put it on top like that. So what we're doing here is we're making sure we're leveled in the front, and we're going to push down just like this, okay? Once you got it like that, we move on to the next one. All right, so now all of these blocks are glued together, and now we need to do the final piece, which is glue all 4 sections together. And to make it easier, we're gonna lay them down so that we can have gravity on our side. We're gonna lay them down like this, okay? We're going to put expanding foam again, right in here, this one on top of that one on top of this one. Make sure it's level from the bottom because that's where it's gonna go back up. And then we need to put something heavy on top of it. Put some wood, put some bricks, put some stone, put it so it weighs it down on top because the expanding foam is gonna wanna push it up. So let's do that, and then we'll let it cure for 8 hours so that it's nice and solid, and then we can begin the carving process. All right, here it is, our big square. Remember, I added some more blocks halfway through because I wanted it to be bigger. So I added 12 more blocks for a total of 64 blocks, because we're gonna use about 4 blocks, maybe 3 blocks for the stem. So to be safe for this project, we need 64 blocks. We go big on this channel. Next, we're gonna start using a hot wire to cut everything. Now, I found a company called the Hot Wire Foam Factory that makes glues, hot wires, the works, everything you need for your styrofoam project. And I'm using a 4-foot compound bow. That's a kit. You can make it into 2 feet wide or 4 feet wide. It's super amazing. So I'm gonna try out this bow and see how good it works. But as a reminder, I always tell everyone that uses styrofoam, invest in a good hot wire. It's going to make your job so much easier. So this is actually an investment because it's a really good hot wire. Cost a little bit of money, but hey, we invest in good products here on this channel. So I'm gonna connect it, we're gonna start, and we're going to be wearing a respirator. You do not want to be breathing in the fumes that happen every time you melt styrofoam. So be outdoors, wear a respirator, and let's get started. So after you finish using the hot wire, I like using these type of tools for the smaller detail. So this is a miter back saw and this is a bendable hand saw. We'll start shaving off pieces and smaller details so we can get a more rounded finish. And that's how I do, just chop away, chop away, chop away. All right, so as you saw, we were sanding it with a sander using 40 grit sandpaper. We want to give it a once over with the sandpaper so we can start getting it smooth. But we need to start doing the ribs of the pumpkin now. So we're going to get a marker and we're just going to draw lines from the center, down the side, bam, just like this, like a real pumpkin would have. Then we're going to get our foam cutting knife and we're going to start making valleys. These valleys are going to be about 2 to 3 inches deep along the lines, and then we're going to start smoothing out those hard edges we carved out so we can give it a nice rounded look. So I'm going to do that now and you'll see how I do the entire thing. Okay, so let me show you how to make the ribs. We have our insulation foam cutting knife, and what we want to do is we want to go about 1 inch to 2 inches to the right, 1 inch to 2 inches to the left. And we're going to stab the foam at an angle, okay? You don't want to go straight down to cut. We want to go at an angle so that we can meet in the middle. And let me start over here on this end first. So we'll do about that, and we're going to start cutting like this. And then we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Just like this. And then, bam, just like that. We continue doing it all the way down. Super simple to do. And I'm actually going to go a little bit deeper so that it's really nice and pronounced. But then once we're done with this, we get our sander. We can either use a sheet of sandpaper. I like to use about 40 or 60 grit. And we're going to start smoothing out these edges right over here and these edges right here. You can also use your sander. But I like using a piece of sandpaper, just a sheet of it, because you have better control. And we're going to make this very smooth so it's very nice and rounded like a real pumpkin would be. This entire process of taking out the ribs should be no more than 15 to 20 minutes. All right, here's a quick tip. If you want your ribs to be more dramatic, go deeper. These are 3 inches deep that we've done, and we've expanded it just a little bit. That way, when we start smoothing it out, it's an even more dramatic look to the pumpkin. So also, you see these holes and these ridges and lines we have here? We're going to fill this in with Loctite foam. It has to be Loctite foam because once we fill it in with foam, we're going to wet it and we're going to pat it down to close all of these holes. So once you're done making them deep, just use your sandpaper. Look how it looks. We've smoothed it out with 60 grit sandpaper. You could use 40 grit, but it takes off a lot more. So 60 is what I like to use when doing this portion over here. And now once you're done with it, if you want it to be even smoother, you can go hit it with an 80 or 100 grit sandpaper. And look at that. It's looking really, really awesome. We're almost done with this. Okay, so I've drawn a circle up in here because this area on top needs to be a little bit lower than the rest because a pumpkin goes like this and then it goes in, okay? So make sure you sand this down a little bit. And then we're going to be using a hot knife to cut this. But look, it's going to go like that. When we're done cutting this, we're going to apply Loctite expanding foam in here to just attach it. Got it? So let's start cutting the stem. All right, to cut our stem, we're going to be using a hot knife. Now this one here is an industrial hot knife from the company called the Hot Wire Foam Factory. Now I've used so many of their products. You need to check them out. They make so many good things, including this workhorse. This one comes with different sized blades. It comes with a cutting tool that can cut the styrofoam blocks. I love it. You should get yourself one. Invest in a good knife. So we're going to get this one and we're going to cut our block. Again, I might stick another block next to it to make it thicker or might make it taller. Whatever your preference is, go for it. we're going to cut this and we're going to use a marker to do a rough outline of the shape we're going for, and then we're going to start cutting, we're going to start shaving, we're going to start sanding. But one thing to tell you that's very important is that when you melt styrofoam, you release toxic gases, which aren't good for us. So I always wear a respirator when I'm melting or cutting styrofoam with a hot knife. I advise all my viewers to get yourself a respirator and use it while you're cutting or melting styrofoam. You don't want to breathe in these toxic fumes. So be outside when you do it, wear your respirator, and let's get to cutting. So here's our stem. We sanded it, it's smooth and it's ready to go. We've drawn these lines. This is where the ribs, or should I say the details of the stem are gonna go. We're gonna use the same hot knife we just used to cut this. We're gonna go down about 2 inches and then we're gonna start smoothing it out, just how we did the pumpkin. So I'm probably gonna make this a little bit wider, so maybe do 2 passes with the hot knife to get rid of some of it, and then start smoothing out the edges so it's nice and loamy like that. See, we did this, and then we're gonna use Loctite expanding foam. I was hacking away at the bottom, by the way, that's why it looks like that. We're gonna use Loctite expanding foam to attach it to the top of the pumpkin, and any excess expanding foam that comes out, we're gonna wet it and push it down really nicely. I just realized I wasn't recording the part, but we just use, like I said, we use the hot knife. We just cut from 2 different ways to get this nice groove going, and now we're going to get our 60 grit sandpaper and do what we did to the pumpkin. Bam, smooth out these areas, and once that's done, attach it with Loctite, and then we can paint it. All right, so we have it here. As a reminder, I was hacking away at the bottom so it could fit just a little bit better on here, but no matter. We're gonna be using Loctite. We're gonna spray Loctite over here to hold it down. We're gonna spray it with water, and after about 5 minutes, then we're going to come pat it down so it doesn't become very bulbous and ugly, okay? All right, so now it's time to draw the face, and as you can see, I was making a lot of different changes to it, but no matter, we're gonna paint over any of the markers that we mark on this. But yeah, get yourself a face. I'm trying to make it look like the Halloweentown one, but let's see if it looks like it, okay? We're gonna get our foam cutting knife that we've been using before, and we're going to start cutting this out. All right, so to cut this out is super simple. Remember, this isn't gonna be hollow, it's a solid block of styrofoam. So all we're gonna do is carve out about 2 to 3 inches of the eye, then we're going to use glow-in-the-dark paint to fill it in. So go like this, and I'm just gonna show you really quickly. And then, just like that, bam, look how easy. You start cutting out chunks just like this. Just like that. Continue doing everything and you should be done in no time. All right, so let me tell you what's going on here. After I finished the face, I realized that the seams between some of the blocks were still noticeable. I used Loctite foam in between the seams and it was still very noticeable even after I tried to sand them and cut them. So, lo and behold, I didn't realize that I also had a foam coat. Now this product that you see right here is called an all-purpose foam coat from the Hot Wire Foam Factory. You're supposed to coat the entire piece of styrofoam with this to create a hard shell. Now they have waterproof hard shells and then the all-purpose foam coat here that just creates a hard shell, and then you want to paint it to ensure that it's weatherproof. So this here, this foam coat is great for gaps, cracks, and holes, and it was covering all of the seams so nicely. So I recommend that if you want to get rid of the seams, you go with a foam coat. I link everything that I use down in the description of this channel. So this is paintable, this is sandable, and I'm going to probably end up coating the majority of it in order to give it that nice coat and nice exterior, and then we can paint it. Once you're done with your pumpkin, it's time to build the pedestal base that it's going to rest on. Now you can do yours whatever height and width you want, but I'm going to do mine 3 feet tall by 30 inches wide by about 2.5 to 3 feet deep. You can really play with the measurements to get what works for you. So for me, those are the measurements that work. Next, we're going to get insulation foam board. I'm going to get the 1-inch type so I can stick it with some expanding foam or even some screws. Then we're going to paint it to look like stone, and then we're going to use our Dremel tool to carve in the Halloweentown logo that is in front of it. After you're done with this, we need to put some moldings on the top and bottom, and of course we need to put a sheet of plywood on the top for the pumpkin to rest on. So let's get started.